Hello guys, welcome to a new video. Today we have something extremely special. We're going to be showing you and telling you just the best tricks and tips when playing 2.6 Hog Rider Cycle against any type of mortar deck. We're going to be playing against 3 different type of mortar decks. The first one you can see that has Tornado and Rocket. The second one I believe is with Hog Rider, and the third one I think it's with Miner. So sit down, get comfortable, and get ready to just enjoy and learn a lot about 2.6 tips and tricks. So these games are going to be very similar to the games you're going to play against X-Bow when you're playing 2.6 Hog Cycle, in the way that you're always going to be defending in a very similar way. You're going to be wanting to keep 1 or 2 cards in your deck in order to defend. For example, the Ice Golem is essential to defend against Mortars and X-Bows. And additionally, you want to not get nervous in these kind of matches, because the moment you get nervous and you mess up a card placement, or for example you use an Ice Golem when you don't have to, you're gonna be in big trouble. Here, for example, we used the Ice Golem before knowing that we used the Ice Golem in offense when we shouldn't have, and for that our defense gets a bit complicated. But you can see that since he was very low on elixir, he wasn't able to actually punish us on the other end. Here I believe he's going to Tornado our Hog away. Yes, we have gotten a lot of damage on his right side tower for now. But since he has the Tornado, he's going to be able to defend our Hog Riders for 1 less elixir pretty consistently and gaining an elixir advantage against us. So the way we want to play this is just being very patient, playing defense before anything else, knowing exactly, again, as I said, the cards you need to defend the Mortar, and using Hog Rider whenever you have it available and you know that he doesn't have any other of the cards that can actually go against you. In this case, since he has the Tornado, you have to just go Hog Rider as often as possible just to be able to get damage onto his towers. Try to Queen 3 crown him if you can. If not, just try and do as much damage to his towers. Try to force him to actually make a mistake with any of his Tornadoes, for example, and just keep defending. The key to these matchups is knowing how to defend the Mortar. When defending the Mortar, it is key to actually place especially the main card you want is the Ice Golem. You want to place that on the center, going to the opposite side of the Mortar. For example, there you can see that we kited the Mortar by putting our Ice Golem moving to the right when the Mortar was actually on the left. Here, for example, you see that he actually made a mistake and he had to Tornado, and we could just take the Mortar with a cannon, but you want to look for those plays. So once you have the first step of the defense, which is just placing an Ice Golem to kite the Mortar away, you then want to wait for any of his supporting cards. They will usually follow them with a Firecracker, with a Knight, with some Spear Goblins, or anything like that. Depending on what they do, you either want to Fireball the Mortar, you want to go with a Cannon and then a Musketeer, or only a Musketeer, you maybe want to Fireball, but you want to adapt to the situation. Your defense will not change a lot throughout the game, but between games you do have to recognize which one will work best for you. However, against every single deck, you will always need the Ice Golem to defend against the Mortar. In case that you don't have the Ice Golem in cycle when you have to defend his Mortar, you can always use an Ice Spirit to kite his Mortar while you get back to the cycle. Here as well, you can use a Cannon, just put it in the middle. It has a very high HP and it can stand a lot of hits from the Mortar. And then a Musketeer as well. You can see that we do the Ice Golem, but it wasn't the best Ice Golem. It didn't actually kite the Mortar too well, so we then placed another Cannon. Especially whenever you're facing the Evolution Mortar, the game does get a bit more complicated. You want to then commit a lot more on defense, once you have secured a lot of damage on their tower. You can see that just by cycling Hog Riders whenever we get a Hog Rider and we have enough elixir, we just go for 1. Especially when he has spent a lot on offense by trying to get his Mortars to connect. So whenever you're facing against an evolved Mortar player, you want to pay a lot of attention to when they have an evolved Mortar. Whenever they get their evolution card, you want to make a especially good defense. You want to overspend on defense, because if that Mortar connects you to your tower, you can lose the game in just 4 or 5 seconds with a couple of hits and everything like that. So just to recap, you want to defend the Mortars by using the Ice Golem, and then in any other cards such as your Fireball, your Musketeer, your Cannon, to beat their support cards. You want to rinse and repeat this cycle, and whenever you can, you will Hog Rider. Usually you want to go opposite lane, but in games that are too close, it doesn't really matter if you go the same lane, but generally you do want to attack the opposite lane. Here you can see that we actually put again another Ice Golem, but the Mighty Miner Bomb pushes our Ice Golem to the same lane of the Mortar. It doesn't matter, because he gives us a Fireball value and we're able to take the Mortar with only a Musketeer, and she is left with some HP to actually get one hit on the tower, which is pretty positive to us. But now, another thing you have to do then, the other tip I want to give you, is that you have to recognize what other cards they can use to counter your Hog Rider. Usually, good Mortar players with another win condition, such as a Hog Rider or a Miner, will wait to use Mortars when you play your Hog, as a way of defending your Hog Rider and you having to commit a lot more elixir to actually attacking or defending than the Mortar. But whenever they don't and they use their Mortar aggressively, as this player is using, you can see that we actually placed a Hog Rider, and we knew that he was going to defend it with Goblins because he didn't have his Mighty Miner and Ice Spirit combo in cycle. So we just went with a Hog Rider and then a prediction log, and it actually worked out. Look at how much damage we actually dealt to him. Now we're going to defend with a Cannon, but in this matchup we have to be careful because he does have a Hog Rider as a second win condition. So we quickly cycle back to another Cannon to defend in case he wants to drop a Hog Rider. Here we don't prediction log because we actually thought he had his Mighty Miner, but he didn't. So he was actually able to defend our push pretty well. We save the Cannon for the Hog Rider, so there he goes, and our Musketeer will take out his Musketeer. One good thing that we have in this matchup is that this guy is not really careful when he's using his Musketeers. We're getting a lot of value from that, and I think we're getting the majority of our advantage from that kind of push. In situations like these where you're getting into overtime, you have the majority of the damage dealt, and he's just going to start pressuring you like crazy, you want to mainly focus on one thing, which is defense. You want to give up offense and just double down on defense because you have the damage lead. If you get like this to the end of the game, you will actually win the game. So you just have to play it carefully, be patient, and eventually you will win the game. It's just a matter of time if you play your cards right and you defend like you're supposed to. Here you can see that he played his Evolution Mortar to defend our Hog Rider. It's not the best play for him, but it doesn't matter. He actually got away with it as he defended pretty well. Look at that. As I was saying, he placed another Musketeer on the bridge to try and kill our Musketeer, but it actually didn't give him that much value. Here, as we saw a double Musketeer in front of the Mortar, we decided to first Fireball and then put our Ice Golem, which again is a pretty good play if you want to get out of sticky situations, and it is essential in those kind of, you have to adapt onto what supporting cards are near the Mortar, because if you have a lot of Fireball value, you prefer to go with a Fireball and then just kite it out and let the Mortar die over time with the Ice Golem. Here, another play you can use is just play your Ice Golem to kite the Mortar. If they don't play any other card to kill that Ice Golem, you can just use it on your offense with your Hog Rider, which will give you so much value for that Ice Golem, since it is the most important card you have against these type of decks. Here, we use an Ice Golem to defend against that Musketeer, so now what we have to do is pressure so that we can get back to another Ice Golem and actually defend his Mortar again. We go with a prediction log, although we haven't seen his Goblins yet, because in this meta, usually these decks are paired very heavily with Goblins, but it doesn't matter since the log is a 2 elixir card, and we can defend the Goblins with other cards that we have. We should be fine here. Now, one thing that you want to do here, in case their deck does have a Firecracker, please activate the King Tower, your King Tower, as early as possible, since that will increase the probability of you winning the game by a lot. However, if they don't, it doesn't matter, you're fine. And if you follow just the simple footsteps that I'm telling you, you should win. So footstep 1, just understand what kind of deck he has. Step 2, make sure that you know how to defend well mortars, that you have his deck under control, and that you are playing patient and carefully by just placing ice golems, taking care of your cycle, and then killing any other supporting cards as carefully and calculatedly as possible. And if that defense works, then the next step is just focusing on playing Hog Riders as much as possible, trying to use prediction logs or prediction fireballs whenever you think it will give you some value. For example, in this instance, where I was playing a Hog Rider behind an Ice Golem, and the Hog Rider was actually countered by an Ice Spirit and Goblins, so I decided to log and look at how much value that actually got. Here we're going to defend again the Musketeer with an Ice Golem. Since it's double elixir, we are pretty certain that we will be able to get to another one before he mortars, or at least force him to place a mortar defensively. Here you can see that we're again kiting the mortar with other small units. Since 2.6 is a lot of small units, you can kite it with almost anything. You can kite it with Ice Spirits, you can kite it with Ice Golems, or Skeletons, or even just placing your cannon as we did last time. But you can see that we have a very big elixir advantage, and now his only way of actually beating us is playing his miner offensively and his mortar defensively, which will not allow our hog to get a hit. And he's actually understanding that now, and he's starting to do it, so that it can be dangerous game for him. However, since you can defend his miners with 1 elixir, and he's spending a lot more than us right now on defending our Hog Riders, since he's spending 4 on a mortar and 2 on goblins, just with your cycle cards, you will be able to take him down. Just look at how much damage those Ice Spirits, Logs, Fireballs, and Prediction spells are actually doing. Those should get you the win. And look, we're never missing the Ice Spirits, the Ice Golems to then just kite his mortars. So this is how you win against Mortar. I hope it helped. If it did, please leave a like, a comment on what you want to see next, and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on future content on this channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.